So, ever since I published my chapbook, I published a book of poetry in celebration of Poetry Month. April is National Poetry Month. And my brain has been thinking in rhyme. And I think it was because I had to go through all of my poems and make sure that they were in my chapbook, which actually I just realized now that it's published that I left 3 of them out of it. It's okay, it's not a big deal. Um, I can always add to it. But uh I woke to some things happening to me, but also the physical that parts that were happening to my body because of the biotech that Dr. Frederick V. Price, MD, snuck in my body during a hysterectomy that he's been able to lie about and not tell the truth about in a country where no one's above the law, where we all are supposed to follow the law, where we're all equal. He's been able to lie and deny me truth, justice, and restitution. And I've had no choice but to figure out a way to survive and cope with something that I never consented to or asked for. And I've done a good job. So much so that parts of this biotech doesn't just hurt, but does a whole lot of other things that I feel like my end users wish that I didn't know. But part of the stuff that it does, they actually learned from me because they wouldn't have known. Like a doctor, a surgeon, a coder can't tell you how something feels. Matter of fact, they don't even know if it functions. And they don't know what the reactions would be when certain amounts of energy builds up in the human body. They don't know how my body, with that kind of energy being conserved and being used within the environment, how it will react to things within my environment. Like, so my body reacts to certain things on the periodic table. They would have never known that just by coding, just by surgical procedure, just by designing. They would only know that through observation of the subject that possesses the biotech in their body. So a lot of the things that they've learned about the biotech and what it can do, they learned it from me over these 9 years. And they want me to unsee things and unknow things that make me privy or give me power or empowers me, because that was never the intent of why they did this to me. I'm sure of it. But that's neither here or there. Still, someone tries to do things to me adversely with the biotech. Like I said, all my end users are not the same. And I woke up saying, thinking, I said, I will no longer live under the haze of my end users' gaze. And it made me think about like how I get buzzed out of my bed every morning. As though the US is like some type of high-tech plantation. Like, I don't know who's doing that to me. And then I also get digitally, remotely raped by the biotech. Someone buzzes my middle fingers when I say things that they don't like. I get stabbed at the top of my head, dinged on my temple. All types of egregious abuses happen with this biotech. And I said that when they snuck this biotech in my body, I've been trying to figure out how to cope with it, and I've done that, and now I've been curtailing it. I've been saying what should not happen with this biotech, how it should not be used. I've been documenting everything about it, how it is being used, how it could be used, how it should be used, all of it. I mean, the bottom line is I never consented to it. It was snuck in my body, and I had to figure out a way to cope and deal with what was happening to me. But once I did that, it's kind of like it made me think of like being hazed, like in a sorority or fraternity. Like I saw myself as someone that never signed up. I never wanted to be a part of some type of order. I never signed up for it. But let's just say I was being hazed, and then you're trying to cope. Like if you're being hazed, you're trying to cope, you're trying to conquer, you're trying to get your footing and figure out how to get to the next level. But then what happens when you realize that your hazers are idiots and morons? What happens when you realize your hazers are power tripping and power playing and trying to create a confederacy? Well, then you stop wanting to live under or be subject to your end users, or live under your hazers, or live under the haze of their gaze, right? Did I say that right? I'm trying to make sure I said that right. Because I didn't write it down. Um yeah, I said it right. I no longer want to live under the haze of my end user's gaze. I was trying to figure out why I didn't sound right when I said it, because I didn't put the end user in the middle. So I feel like, someone has tried to haze me with this biotech, like trying to get me to bend the knee, trying to make me submissive and fearful and subjected and subjugated, and then they try to use pain to make me docile so that I don't speak up. And I'm kind of like, you can't use the biotech this way on US soil, on Americans. I'm no longer going to live under the haze of my end user's gaze. And I don't know, I woke up thinking that this morning. And I feel like that's what it's been about for a very long time with the way that this biotech has been used. That's why I've been posting a lot on my podcast, humancapitalpodcast.com and nicolasparks.com. That's why I wrote the manuscript, What's the Matter? The Psychology of Feeling in the Era of AI, which you can read on Amazon. I get paid per click. So every page you read, I get paid for it. And if you read my book, you can email me at NIKOLAWARREN@gmail.com. I would like to know if anyone's read my manuscript. You can also donate to me on Cash App. I said send a holler, donate $1, whatever your heart's desire. That would help me as well. And then I have an FYI page where I post FYIs. And I also have a science experiment page, which is I call it Control. It's science experiments using static energy. And I said that over time my experiments will escalate in what they show. So a lot of them I've done before. And like I learned a lot about this biotech incidentally, because things happened by accident. Kind of like the story about how they created the microwave, how this guy was working on this scientist, he was working on something else, and he had a chocolate bar in his pocket, and it melted when he was working on something else. And then he realized what had just happened, and he invented the microwave, which is in everyone's home. And I feel like when Dr. Frederick V. Price snuck this biotech in my body, he didn't realize that he was turning me into the Leyden jar. And that's pretty much what I am. I'm a human Leyden jar. And when I come in contact with certain things on a periodic table, I cause a reaction. And it makes me very powerful. And my body fills up with this static energy mainly because of the way that someone is using the biotech on me. And they didn't realize that in the first 5 years, I want to say from 2015 to maybe 4 years, in the first 4 years, they didn't realize, because I wasn't really recording that part. I was recording it, but I wasn't posting it. They didn't realize that my body was having a literal external physical reaction to the things within my environment when I came in contact with it. Um, and they didn't realize that I was realizing it either, to the point where I started trying things, doing little science projects when they would fuck with me. I would do things and I would see what happens, and shit was happening. Things were happening all over the place. And I was just, and it made me less afraid of the biotech. It made it more, um, it removed the horror show for me, actually. When I started seeing the science of it and seeing, it's not magic, it's science. But sometimes science can seem like magic when it does certain things. So the digital rape was like a horror show, like, using it to hurt me, trying to digitally remote control my vagina and digitally rape me. That was the horror show of the biotech. Like, that was something that I had to figure out how to remove myself from certain things that would happen to my body against my will and without my consent, and still learn how to be my own authentic person and who I was. And then my whole goal was to conquer. Like, my goal was to conquer, because I realized that the power in the biotech for the end user, for some of them, not all of them, is pain. B.F. Skinner's operant conditioning, the use of pain as punishment, the withdrawal of pain as reward. The same thing that slaves were subject to. So I was like, if the power is pain, then I just have to overcome the pain. Then they have no power. And then I realized that the power tripping came from my response. So I was like, okay, the power is pain, but they don't have power without my response. And if they don't have the pain, they really don't have any power. So that was like my goal, to conquer. And pain is not just physical pain. Pain is also emotional pain, like how I get mocked by the biotech. How someone tries to power play, power trip, buzzing me out of my bed, buzzing my middle fingers when I say certain things. Actually, a lot of times when my middle fingers get buzzed when I say things, I don't even care anymore, because I'm like, I'm glad you heard me. I mean, you're listening. You're listening to and violating my civil rights. I don't care if you hear me. I don't have the fear factor. You're not my overseer, and I'm not property. So if you heard me, you don't like what I said, then you can, not listen. And when you do that to me, then I know that you heard me, and I'm glad. So I'm kind of going off on, like, I'm saying, I feel myself moving further away from the end of this recording by talking about a bunch of other stuff. So anywho, I am going to stop this recording because it's really long. And that's it.